All right. Call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Williamsport City Council meeting. It's Thursday, October 27th, 2022. We're at Trade and Transit 2, third floor. Please rise for the invocation by Councilman Pelizzi, followed by the flag salute and the roll call.
Dear Lord, I pray that you guide us always. Satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that we will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. I pray that we will be fruitful. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Frank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Allison,
Here.
Mr. Pelizzi,
Here.
Mr. Ryder,
Here.
Ms. Mealy,
During this
absent.
meeting.
Mr. Mackey's absent. Mrs. Katz. Here. Mr. Yoder.
Here, we have a quorum. So there's a police pension meeting scheduled following the city council meeting. We're going to postpone that. There's actually no action items on the agenda for tonight, so we're going to postpone that until the items that we were anticipating are ready to go. So just a heads up and note for the record. Item 3, approval of city council meeting minutes dated October 13th, 2022. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any comments or questions related to the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelizzi,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder. Mrs. Katz. Yes. Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 4, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no requests tonight. We'll move to item 5, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing the excavation of certain streets for a water main replacement project by the city of Williamsport for Williamsport Municipal Water Authority.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. I will welcome Mr. Gary Narr. Good evening, sir. You want to turn the mic on? No worries.
No worries.
Testing, can you hear me now?
Good. Thank you.
What we're bringing before you tonight is a request from the Water Authority for the excavation of certain streets for water main replacement within the city of Williamsport. Basically, what they're requesting to do is go into the moratorium and work over the winter during with the streets of Williams, Locust, Fifth Avenue is one project. The other project will be up Hollywood Circles. I do have members and representatives here that can answer any questions. It did go through Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Narr. This was reviewed in Public Works. Mrs. Katz?
Yes, it was, and we did have a discussion. One of the discussions that we had to do with some of the construction work being done downtown, which the Water Authority wants to start immediately as soon as possible, from what I understand, and that most of it, the work will be done probably by the middle of December, the end of December. And we just felt that that was not conducive to the business district. We thought that was very detrimental. So that was one of the things that we discussed. We also wanted to know from the committee if all of this is, is there a problem with this? Is this an emergency? And when I did talk to Mr. Miller, you said that some of these streets are working in conjunction with the city's street paving also. So this is why you would like to do this, so that it can go on together, that we can still work together. Other than that, those are the discussions that we had. Anything from my committee here?
No, I really have nothing more to offer. Much it.
So I would like, if Mr. Miller, how are you two doing? I haven't seen you
We're
guys in
doing
so
well.
long.
We'll be very brief. We've had a great working relationship with the city. We try to make sure our projects dovetail right into your project, so we know when you're going to be paving. We like to do the infrastructure underneath that because I know there's nothing worse than digging up a freshly paved street. So this is a project to replace water, water lines, our infrastructure under the ground, and we like to make sure that the businesses have reliable service. So this is a standard capital project, also dovetailing with your project. So, and I can turn it over to Eric, who is our engineer, and I think he'll assuage any fears you have with schedule.
Yeah, so for scheduling purposes here, we're looking, our contractor is currently out working on William Street. I'd say as we speak, but they'll be back out there next week. And they'll continue working through William Street over to Hepburn Street and then pick up probably second week of November, working Fifth Ave down Louisa Street. Now, I understand that there's concerns about that being within the business district. And if the council would like, I can have our contractor move over to Hollywood Circle and then pick back up once they complete the Hollywood Circle area at the start of the new year. Well, it'll probably be February time period when we come back to downtown after they complete that area. So I just would request what dates you would like us to avoid being within the business district, and then we'll work around that schedule with our contractor. We do appreciate being able to keep them active on the city streets. I know Hollywood Circle is slated to be part of your paving contract this year. And so that was one of the reasons that we selected this project and tried to streamline it as quickly as possible.
One of the biggest problems is, since it's the holiday season that's starting, and it's tough enough on the businesses downtown, and to have traffic disrupted can create a problem. You don't know. There's so many people that say, if I can't find a parking spot, I'm not going to stop. That type of thing. Plus, you don't want the inconvenience. You want, during the holiday season, it's stressful enough for everybody, and you want to make sure that everything is okay. So if possible, for me, I think it would be better to transfer that work to Hollywood Circle and wait to do the downtown until after the new year at this point, because really the holiday season is going to be starting in the next week or two. It really is.
If I may, if I work with our contractor and have them try to get them out of there, clean up where they've been working recently next week, and get them to move out of the downtown area, say the week of November 7th. Does that assuage any fears as we move towards Thanksgiving?
I think that would be fine.
And
As
then-
long as they're done and traffic can flow
Yeah.
from that time on, because it starts getting busier and busier.
Yep, so I'll work with them to get them out of there during the week of November 7th to free up traffic so that there won't be any road closures downtown. Like I said, if I move them over to Hollywood Circle, what will happen is they'll want to complete that full area. So we won't be back downtown until probably February, beginning of March time period, just based off of the amount of work that's necessary over there. There's going to be a lot of service laterals getting taken care of.
Okay, and Gary, what streets are we working in conjunction with them?
I would have to refer to Scott as far as what streets they're piggytailing with us. I believe it's Hollywood Circle, correct? Are we going to be paving Hollywood Circle?
I'll have to take a look. I can answer a lot of those questions.
Sure. Okay.
It's actually it's Hollywood Circle, First Ave, Second Ave, all down along that area for a good majority of it. Pretty much everywhere that we're going to be digging. I've worked with the city engineer, John Sander, in terms of developing that project listing, and we will be reimbursing the city for a portion. Some of those streets were driven by the city. Some of those streets were driven by our work. So.
And you're doing curb to curb?
We'll share in the cost for the half width, and then the city's doing the curb to curb.
Okay.
The one reference talks about First and Second Avenue in conjunction with Hollywood Circle.
It's those streets tie into Hollywood Circle. They're perpendicular to Hollywood Circle. They work north south there, and so we'll be working down the street
Okay.
to the dead end. We won't be going too far there. It's just where the mains,
Just
where the
tie
dead
in.
end mains end up. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions.
Is there any other comments or questions from other members of the council?
Just, I'm going to thank them for working with us that, you know, especially with the business district.
Yeah, we try to be respectful of the business district. We know that it's an economic impact when we're working there, but we also want to prioritize them having reliable service
Right.
because we want to at least be able to plan for outages rather than having day breaks and then everybody without water. And then the other way, you guys may notice, we have some equipment parked in the parking lot of Old City Hall. We heard that we were blocking some of the parking for the farmer space, so we definitely moved it into your parking lot.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for that too.
But we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a collaborative effort, right? I mean, we want to do right for the downtown and for our city residents. We want to do our best to follow the laws we put in place. But I mean, I think you could argue that this is approaching emergency, right? I mean, what's more important than water? I mean, we use it every day. We need it to stay alive. I mean, and so I know a number of my neighbors have, you know, there's been a water main break, for example, and I mean, it stinks, right? And so if we can avoid that, especially in our downtown, I think it's a great thing. So I appreciate you both being here. Thank you for the insight and for the collaboration. Any other comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you both very much. We'll move to item 6, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing an agreement for legal services with the city solicitor.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Mr. Nar.
Yes, what I present to you tonight is a resolution authorizing legal services for the city of Williamsport with Fred Holland, and this is for the zoning hearing board. If you recall, back in April 2021, we did a 5-year resolution with him for services. At the time, he was with Murphy, Butterfield, and Holland. This is just merely cleaning up, changing. He has since changed law firms and is now with McNerney, Page, Vanderlyn, and Hall. So we thought it was prudent to basically adjust that. And again, nothing's changed as far as the finance of it. It's just merely going from one law firm to another to practice. Therefore, we're requesting a resolution to authorize for services. It did go through finance, and I can answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nar. This one through finance, Ms. Mealy.
This went through finance and there really weren't any particular questions from finance. A question for Mr. Ellison on the wording of the resolution. But the understanding from Mr. Sander was that it had gone through the solicitors and it was the appropriate wording. And aside from that, it's pretty much paperwork matters.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Any comments or questions from other members of council? All right. Hearing to see none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Nar. Have a good evening. Appreciate it. Moving to item 7, Mrs. Frank.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a municipal services agreement between the city of Williamsport and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for maintenance of slopes along Miller Run.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Livermore. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, members of council. Yes, what you have before you tonight is an agreement between the city of Williamsport and PennDOT. What this agreement does is help the city maintain Miller's Run, which is a short stretch of the levee between Lowestoft and the city of Williamsport. This is something we do every year. 2023 and 24 is amount is $3,615. This is something we do every year. We renew it. And this went through Public Works on Tuesday. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Livermore. This one through Public Works, Mrs. Katz?
Yes, it did. It did go through Public Works. And like Scott said, this is something that comes to us every year and we do get paid for it. So it's work done and paid in full.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Any comments or questions from other members? All right, hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Allison.
Yeah.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Livermore. We'll move to item 8, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution approving the conveyance of a vacated portion of Franklin Street to Lycoming College.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Lubin, good evening.
Good evening, sir. This is the, excuse me, from the city to with Lycoming College. It's really from the realignment of Basin and Street, Basin and Franklin Street. They had conveyed land to the city, so we could put the street in. And this is to convey back to the college the portions of the street that were vacated.
All right. I think this went to Public Works, but I don't know that we had any kind of
They
discussion
didn't
on it.
have a discussion.
Okay.
We didn't have a solicitor, and this has been an ongoing project for, how many years would you say, Norm? It's been several years.
Yes,
So, hopefully this is the last piece of the puzzle.
I hope so.
Okay.
Because, yeah, the deed from them came in this year also. So
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, any comments or questions from the members of council? Okay, you can see none. Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Lubin. We'll move to item 9, certificates of appropriateness. We have 2. We've got one, the first one, item 1, at 727, 729 West 4th Street, replacing some glass, outlines of the materials. And then item 2 is 731 Gray Street for Alpha Housing. Looks like some roofing work. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second.
Mhm.
They want to mute your microphone. Thank you. Mr. Skip, welcome. I can never pronounce your last name the right way. That is the safe go-to.
I
So
got it.
how are you, Skip?
I'm doing well. Good evening, council. Nothing unusual in either one of these 2 projects, other than improving the maintenance of the buildings and keeping them aesthetically in line with the historic district. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Skip. Are there any comments or questions from any
Say that
members
fast
of
again.
council? All right. Here you see none. Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. We'll move to item 10, except for filing. We have the Water and Sewer Authority minutes from August 24th, 2022, and the Finance Committee meeting minutes from September 13th and September 27th, 2022. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any comments or questions related to the minutes for filing? Hearing and seeing none. Mrs. Frank on the motion.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Item 11, announcements. So our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held next Thursday, actually, November 3rd at 7 PM, right here at Trade Transit 2. We are getting into budget season. And so that is our only regularly scheduled meeting in November. We have a good amount of time compared to the past few years to work through budget. And so I think we're very much looking forward to getting a budget delivered to us next Thursday by the administration and starting that process and working through that collaboratively. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, November 1st at 1 PM will be Finance, 2:30 PM Public Works. Wednesday, November 2nd at 9 AM is ERC, 11:30 AM Public Safety. Again, next Thursday, November 3rd at 7 PM is our city council meeting. On Monday, November 14th at 7 PM will be our first budget work session right here. On Wednesday, November 16th at 7 PM will be our second budget work session. So they're a little bit earlier this year. On Thursday, November 17th, 10:30 AM is our zoning hearing board. Monday, December 5th, 12 PM will be planning commission. Tuesday, December 6th, getting into the following cycle of council meetings, at 1 PM will be finance, 2:30 PM public works. Wednesday, December 7th at 9 AM is our ERC, 11:30 AM public safety, and then our following council meeting will be on Thursday, December 8th at 7 PM, right here in Trade Transit 2. Are there any comments from members of council? Okay. Are there any comments from the administration tonight? Okay. Any comments from members of the public? You would come up, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes when you approach the podium. And welcome.
My name is Frank Steckel. I was here, I believe, the last meeting. I have 3 minutes, so I'll make it quick. I came here with the story that I was a victim of a crime. A Cumberland County Courthouse, the law enforcement officer told me the crime was at least a dereliction of duty. I think it's obstruction of justice committed by a member of the Williamsport Police Department. And I really am not appreciating the fact that I come here and take my time to report this to council. And the only response I get is your 3 minutes are up. That was you, Mr. Yoder. And I expect to take this recording and send it to the necessary law enforcement offices. It's your job to protect the public. You're not supposed to tell a person. A little dinger for a cooking stove can tell you your 3 minutes are up. You're supposed to say, we will get the administration look into it, council look into it. Somebody will do something about it. We're talking about corruption in the Williamsport Police Department. Maybe that doesn't make us, does anybody here have any concern about that? And Ms. Mealy here, she's a minority party. The rest of you are all Republicans. Law enforcement Republicans, Mr. Biter, I knew your father, he was a good man. Mr. Palizzi, I don't know you I remember from before. Katz, I never talked to you. It's a law enforcement problem, all right? If it was me, I'd say, hey, nothing, I don't know anything. When one of the top law enforcement officers in the county says it's a very least dereliction of duty, what are you going to respond, Mr. Yoder? Or are you going to wait for your, I know, Mr. Lubin, I'm okay. Are you going to wait for the solicitor to say what you're allowed to say or not say? Or do you have any comment? Does anybody have any comment?
No.
No. Okay, so possibly the Williamsport Police Department is committing a crime and you have no response to that. Is that what you're saying?
No. You had a couple other items to bring to our attention as
No,
well?
I have this item to bring first. Okay, I'm waiting for a response from someone.
That's all. We very much appreciate it.
No, it's not all. Is that your response? That's all? There's no response? You don't care about crime in the law enforcement community? Anyone?
If there's anything else that you'd like to bring up to council?
Oh, let me
not,
see. Is
appreciate
there anything
it.
else? Oh, I did complain about some brush. The fellow left. Brush is so bad on the alley that they actually paved around the brush. You know if anybody said or did it?
Appreciate that. I believe, was talking with Mr. Livermore a couple weeks ago. I have it's not on this piece of paper, but I jotted it down. I've not had a chance to drive by, but I know Scott was looking into it as well. So
Do you have a
appreciate that.
suggestion of who I should take my complaint about the police department to? Or we,
I do not,
no?
and your time is up.
Okay. Well,
Appreciate
maybe
it.
this one would be nice enough to print something about that.
Appreciate it. Are there any other comments from the public? All right. Any comments from the news media? There's nobody here. Okay. Take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any objection?